Good evening. My name is Allison Kaplan. I'm Director of Education at the National First Ladies Library, located at the National First Ladies Historic Site in Canton, Ohio. I want to welcome you to this evening's program. And before we get started, I want to tell you about a few things. First of all, some housekeeping. If you have to leave this talk tonight, or if you're watching it live and you have to step away, or you love the talk and you want to share it with someone, it will be posted to our YouTube page and our Facebook page within 24 hours. So please share that link, or don't be afraid to step away and come back. If you have problems hearing or connecting with us and you've logged in via Eventbrite, we do encourage you to open up Zoom. And we do encourage you to use the chat to let us know where you're from, where you're joining us from, if you have a favorite First Lady, what you're excited about related to women's history, because we love to hear what's going on and what you are interested in. So use the chat. If you have questions for the speaker tonight, use the chat. I'll be in the chat moderating. You can use a Q&A to ask questions too. We're also watching on Facebook. So if you have a question for Michelle, we will be in there to answer. So thanks so much. I want to mention, so the summer's winding down, but if you are still out there traveling or you are local to us, we encourage you to come to the National First Ladies Historic Site and see the exhibitions curated by the National First Ladies Library there. We have a wonderful exhibition about Nancy Reagan, celebrating the Nancy Reagan centennial. It would have been her 100th birthday. Amazing 1980s gowns from the Reagan Library, Western wear from the Reagan Ranch, and objects from the National First Ladies Library collection. It is a really, really interesting exhibition. I've really loved working on it and programming it. So if you get a chance to come out, please do. If you are getting back in the swing of things and ready to go back to school, we are ready to go with you because our legacy lecture is starting up for the school year. So on September 7th, you can join us here at noon for our first legacy lecture with Elaine Rice-Bachman, who is joining us to discuss the exhibition that she curated for the Winterthur Museum about Jacqueline Kennedy and her relationship with the family that helped to build the Winterthur and the restoration of the White House. So we are very excited about that. On September 13th, our film series will be joining up. You can screen a film in the comfort of your own home, thanks to our partners at Stark Library, and meet up with us. It's kind of like a book club, and we're going to be discussing 19th century women doctors. I think it will be really fun. October 5th, Legacy Lecture will be back in action with Annette Dunlap, who has written an amazing book. Groundbreaking scholarship about Lou Henry Hoover. So we're super excited about that one. I think it will be really good. Another local program, October 14th, we will be debuting at the Presbyterian Church in Canton, East Wing Songs, a number of new compositions inspired by First Ladies. And our cooking series will be back up in October as well. We'll be looking at, I believe we're looking at who are Abigail Adams. So that should be really fun. I'm excited about that. And we have all sorts of things planned coming up for children's programming around Halloween and Christmas. Some really amazing things happening this fall. So we hope that you'll tune in with us and have some fun learning about the First Ladies, as we always do. So again, I am going to turn things over to Michelle Gullian, who is our Director of Research at the National First Ladies Library and Collections. I always get it wrong, but she's Director of everything, right? But she is our First Lady think tank. So I'm going to turn things over to her, and she is going to be talking about Eleanor. And if you have questions for me, I will be in the chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. We're going to discuss Eleanor Roosevelt's My Day column. So here's my program that we're going to go through. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the manuscript that she wrote. And let me see if I can get I was having trouble getting there we go. Here's what we're going to be discussing. Here's the manuscript that she wrote on January 5th, 1939. So we're going to be discussing this, but we're going to, and that's really what we're going to concentrate on. I could talk forever about Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she's everybody's favorite. I know she's one of mine. So, but there's just so much you can talk about with her. We're going to really concentrate on her My Day column in this program. You know, of course, she served as the First Lady of the United States from 1933 until 1945, and she became an American political figure, diplomat, and activist in her own right. She wrote her My Day column. It was a syndicated newspaper column that was published from 1935 until 1962, and when she passed away in 1962. So during those almost 30 years, Eleanor wrote the column consistently, 6 days a week. The only interruption was when FDR died, and she missed 4 days of her column at that point. That is just tremendous. The column allowed Eleanor to reach millions of Americans with her views on social and political issues, and her My Day covered current and historical events. Through the column, she shared her private and public life. It's like she's on Facebook, right? She was so ahead of her time. She would have, it's like Facebook now, dealing with subjects far out of the range of the conventional First Lady's concerns. My Day is an outstanding example of the breadth of issues and activities which occupied Eleanor's life. I kind of went through this, and there's so much that she wrote about. But some of the highlights, I mean, she covers her DAR resignation in 1939, the invasion of Poland on September 2nd, 1939, the Pearl Harbor, December 8th, 1941, the race riots on July 14th of 1943. When she left the White House after FDR's death on April 21st, 1945. The Un-American Activities Committee's investigation of the Hollywood film industry in 1947, and the Brown versus Board of Education, which was a unanimous Supreme Court decision that wiped out the segregation of American schools in 1954. So this is, it spans so much. And you also learn so many wonderful little tidbits of what's going on. What we're looking at tonight is this manuscript here. It was written on January 5th, 1939, over 83 years ago. It was this manuscript was published the next day on January 6th, 1939. And if you go online, there's several places where you can actually visit her My Day columns, and you can read every single one of them if you want to. It's so cool. But if you need to go to January 6th, 1939, if you want to read this one. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to take the paragraphs apart, and we're going to talk about the events and the people that she types about here. That way we can kind of dig in on what is happening 83 years ago. Who is she talking about? What is happening at this time? So that's what we're we're going to approach it this way. So here we go. Here we get started. She starts a number of appointments yesterday afternoon and 1 or 2 guests for dinner, after which I went to the White Galleries on H Street to see Joe Davidson's exhibition of work, which he did in Spain. I think all of his work is interesting, and I like the bust which he did of my husband better than any of the other heads which have been done of him. But there's an additional interest in this exhibition because of the variety of types which are shown. And who is Joe Davidson? Well, there he is. He was an American sculptor. He was an artist, and he grew up on the Lower East Side of New York City. And he was, like I said, he created over 450 portraits in his lifetime, bust portraits. The subjects of these portraits are all walks of life. They are historical figures, presidents, writers, thinkers, artists, politicians, generals, socialites, actors, and other people who inspired him. And that included the everyday man. Davidson sculpted 4 presidents in his lifetime. He sculpted Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Hoover, Dwight D. Eisenhower, in addition to FDR. And here is a picture of him in his Paris studio. This large sculpture that you see here of FDR is now found in the Four Freedoms Park on Roosevelt Island in New York. Here is the bust that he did actually at the White House. That's the White House behind him there in 1933. He worked in clay, and he turned his works then into bronzes, stone carvings, or terracotta. And when creating a portrait in clay, he never asked the sitter to pose. Instead, he engaged them in conversation to get a feeling of their personality. In December of 1933, Joe Davidson arrived in Washington, D.C. by invitation from Sarah Roosevelt, which was FDR's mother. It was to sculpt a bust of President Roosevelt. Davidson worked quickly and completed the final piece in 2 visits. Davidson would go on to complete many sculptures of the president at many different scales, and the 2 men became friends and kept in touch for many years. And right here is, this is one of them that's found in the New York Historical Society. And here's one that's actually a large sculpture that's found in Quebec, Canada. Now we'll go on to what he writes about next. What Eleanor writes about next. I was particularly interested in the miner's wife, whose 2 daughters, I was told, died of starvation. There is tremendous strength in the head and face, but instead of the bitterness which one might expect, I think there is an expression of great kindness and understanding, something unmistakably maternal about the woman. Great interest. Oh, I'd like to stop here. This is obviously a woman who is not a miner's wife. I tried really hard. I could not find that. All I could find were images of the, the famous celebrities that he, and notable people that he did sculpture of. However, this next paragraph, great interest was being shown in the medium which he had used to do the head of a woman who handles foreign correspondence and press relations in general for the Spanish government. It is interesting as a medium, but so new to me that I could not quite decide whether I liked it or not. Of course, I wanted to show what's going on, and I found this, that Joe Davidson made a model of La Pasionera. He was over there in Spain, and he made a model of Senora Dolores Ibarrari. It tells you down here at the very bottom that she was a communist deputy, was one of the founders of the Spanish Communist Party, and under her leadership, 100,000 women formed committees in an anti-fascist organization. And I did find her sculpture that he did. It's quite lovely. And I wanted to also show you some of the other sculpture that he did of some famous women. This is Helen Keller. He actually did 2 busts of her, and they were quite good friends. He adored Helen Keller. And here he is with his friend Gertrude Stein. Again, look at this unique, very smooth, almost Buddhist look of Gertrude Stein that he did, that Davidson did of her. This was actually put in bronze, made into bronze. Next, we'll go on to what she talks about now, and she's going to talk about some amazingly powerful women. A press conference this morning at which Miss Catherine Lenroot and Dr. Martha Elliott of the Children's Bureau came to tell us something about the results of the maternity and infancy program under the Social Security Act. Mrs. Linda Littlejohn of Australia was also present and contributed some interesting facts on work done in Australia and New Zealand. So she's mentioning 3 women here. Who are these women? Well, they're pretty cool, powerful women. Catherine Lenroot was an American feminist and child welfare advocate. She was the 3rd chief of the United States Children's Bureau. She joined the Bureau in 1914, and in 1934, President Roosevelt appointed her the 3rd chief of the Bureau, and she remained in this role until 1951. Under President Roosevelt's administration, the responsibilities of the Children's Bureau expanded significantly. Lenroot, along with Assistant Chief Martha Elliott, who Eleanor mentions, and Grace Abbott, designed and advocated for Title IV. The act authorized the Children's Bureau to administer federal granting aid to the states for maternal and child health and child welfare and services to disabled children. Later, the Bureau also became responsible for the child labor provisions of the Fair Labor Standard Acts of 1938. Lenroot was involved in so much. She represented the U.S. on the board of UNICEF from 1947 to 1951. And after her retirement, she moved to Princeton, New Jersey, where in 1960, she worked with the New Jersey State Board of Child Welfare, as well as working with the Rutgers University School of Social Work. She was succeeded by Dr. Martha Elliott, who had been her assistant chief since the mid-30s. Elliott served 6 years as the chief of the U.S. Children's Bureau. For more than 50 years, Dr. Martha May Elliott took a leading part in the development of health services for mothers and children. She was concerned for children of all countries of the world and worked for them in international organizations such as the League of Nations, United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, the United Nations Children's Fund, and the World Health Organization. She began her practice as a pediatrician in the newly developed Department of Pediatrics at Yale University. It was there that Dr. Elliott moved into social pediatrics with her study of rickets. While continuing at Yale, Dr. Elliott became a member of the Children's Bureau staff and commuted very frequently between Washington and Yale until 1935. She developed the Division of Child Hygiene, and she kept in touch with what was being done under the Shepard-Tower Act, which was the first Maternity and Infancy Act. She collaborated in the drafting of the children's section of the Social Security Act. She was a trailblazer in maternal and children's health, the first woman president of the American Public Health Association, and the only woman to sign the founding document of the World Health Organization. In 1948, Elliott served as president of the American Public Health Association. Again, she was the first woman to hold this position. Since 1964, the organization, the American Public Health Association, has given the Martha May Elliott Award to honor extraordinary health service to mothers and children, to bring such achievement to the eyes of related professional people and the public, and to stimulate young people in the field to emulate efforts. And finally, she mentions Emma Linda Palmer Littlejohn. What an amazing woman she is. She was an Australian feminist, journalist, radio broadcast journalist, and women's rights activist from New South Wales, Australia. She was a well-respected figure in the New South Wales women's movement. And in 1926, she became an executive member of the National Council of Women of New South Wales and the Feminist Club. 2 years later, she launched the League of Women Voters to support female candidates for public office and to press for feminist reforms. She broadcast for the British Broadcasting Corporation in Sydney, Australia, and she reported for the Australia Women's Weekly on the campaigns of the United Associations and the Australian Federation of Women Voters. She belonged to the New South Wales Institute of Journalists and the Business and Professionals Women's Club of Sydney. Littlejohn was an Australian delegate to the Congress of the International Alliance of Women for Suffrage and Equal Citizenship in Istanbul in 1935. The next year, she addressed the Assembly of the League of the Nations on behalf of the Equal Rights International, of which she became president in 1937. From 1937, Littlejohn annually toured Europe and the United States of America, lecturing on women's rights and stressing the urgent need for women to oppose fascism and preserve democratic government through international solidarity. In 1939, she resigned as vice president of United Associations and president of the Equal Rights International. She worked briefly in 1941 as national director of recruiting for the Women's Australian National Services, but she suffered from cancer, and as you can see, she didn't live much longer after that. What a loss. Now we're back to Eleanor's part here, and just a brief little mention. She says, an appointment afterwards, and then a delightful luncheon given at the Women's National Democratic Club by Mrs. Swanson, wife of the Secretary of the Navy. And here is Claude Swanson and his wife, Lucille Lulie Lyons Swanson. She was known as Lulie Swanson. Charles Swanson was a U.S. congressman, a U.S. senator from the state of Virginia, and he was also the 45th governor of Virginia. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, he served as Secretary of the Navy from 1933 until his death, which was only 2 months from the start of World War II. As Naval Secretary, Swanson's passage of the largest U.S. peacetime naval appropriation truly helped prepare the American nation for war. So he didn't live to see that, but he certainly was very instrumental in preparing us for World War II. Lulie Swanson was a leading Washington socialite, and she was also the vice president of the Children's Welfare Society. Now back to Eleanor, who Eleanor is talking about here. We are very disappointed because we had hoped to have Governor and Mrs. Herbert Lehman with us tonight for dinner and the judicial reception, but they are held in New York City by colds. I was looking forward to hearing about many of our friends in New York State who undoubtedly attended the governor's inauguration. And I still hope I will, as we are to have the pleasure of Judge and Mrs. Irving Lehman's company. We hope the colds, which have kept the governor and Mrs. Lehman away, will not confine them long to bed. We all know what it means at this season to be laid up with the knowledge that work is piling up and must be at some time done. The feeling that you are laying up for yourself long hours of work makes it very difficult to retain the frame of mind, which is conducive to rapid recovery. I just love this. I just love the fact that she's talking about these colds. And here is Governor Herbert Lehman and Edith Lehman looking their best without colds. There they are. They're very handsome people. So who was Governor Herbert Lehman? He served from 1933 until 1942 as the 45th governor of New York, and he represented the state of New York in the U.S. Senate from 1939 until 1957. He became a partner in the investment banking of Lehman Brothers in 1908, which was established by his father and was, of course, a very important banking investment house in the country. During World War I, Herbert became a colonel of the U.S. Army General Staff, and in 1928, he entered public service and completely withdrew from the business. On December 3rd, 1942, he resigned the governorship less than a month before the end of his term to accept an appointment as director of the Office of Foreign Relief and Rehabilitation Operations for the U.S. Department of State. He served as Director General of the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration from 1943 to 1946. After his retirement from the Senate, Lehman remained politically active, working with Eleanor Roosevelt and Thomas K. Finletter in the late 1950s and early 1960s to support the democratic movement in Manhattan. And his wife, Edith, she's pretty amazing. She was a political wife, mother, and a volunteer for very important causes. Edith believed in the importance of trade unions, good public schools, and decent housing. She volunteered for the Henry Street Settlement and the Play Schools Association, and together, the Lehmans built the Central Park Children's Zoo. After Herbert's death, Edith created projects in his honor, including the Mount Sinai Medical School, the Lehman Fund for African American college students, and the Lehman School of Ethics at the Jewish Theological Seminary. In recognition of her work as a fundraiser and a benefactor to the United Jewish Appeal and the Federation of Jewish Charities of New York, the Edith Lehman High School in Dimona, Israel, was built by the Women's Division and dedicated to her. The other people that Eleanor mentions is his brother, Judge Irving Lehman, and his wife, Sissy Strauss Lehman. Irving was chief judge of the Court of Appeals in New York, and he was particularly close to his younger brother, Herbert, who we just met there. Their relationship was very close through their adulthood, when Irving, as chief judge of the Court of Appeals, administered the oath of office to Herbert as lieutenant governor on two occasions, and as governor on 4 occasions. Franklin D. Roosevelt, he also swore in Franklin D. Roosevelt twice when he was governor of New York. Lehman served as judge from 1908 until 1944. He was the first elected to the New York State Supreme Court, First Judicial District in 1908. He was elected and began his service as an associate judge of the Court of Appeals in 1924. One of the cool things that I found out about Irving Lehman was he was deaf and he wore hearing aids. And he had a lifelong physical disability that required accommodation in the courtroom. There were large microphones and hearing aid devices that were used throughout the rooms to assist him with his work. His wife, Sissy Lehman, was well-educated, highly accomplished. She loved to play bridge, and she was very involved in her husband's career. And she helped him really fully realize his potential as lawyer and judge. So let's go back to Eleanor's My Day column here. The appointments to the Supreme Court and to the board of the Tennessee Valley Authority have been made today. I imagine that both appointments will be praised and attacked, as all appointments must be. For of course, some people are always disappointed while others are pleased. I think, however, few people will doubt the ability of either of the men to do the work which will be required of them. And after all, that is the most important thing to be considered. Eleanor Roosevelt. So she brings up two appointments here, the Supreme Court that's happened on this day and to the board of the Tennessee Valley Authority. So who is she talking about? She is talking about none other than Chief of Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter. And he was an Australian-American lawyer, professor, and jurist who served as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States from 1939 until 1962. He was a noted advocate of judicial restraint in the judgments of the courts. He was born in Vienna, Austria, and he immigrated to New York City at the age of 12 with his family. He graduated from Harvard Law School, and during World War I, Frankfurter served as Judge Advocate General. After the war, he helped found the American Civil Liberties Union and returned to his position as professor at Harvard Law School. He became a friend and advisor of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who appointed him to fill the Supreme Court vacancy caused by the death of Benjamin N. Cardozo. During the October 1948 court's term, Frankfurter hired William Thaddeus Coleman Jr., who was the first African-American to serve as a Supreme Court law clerk. However, in 1960, despite a recommendation from the dean of Harvard Law School, Frankfurter turned down Ruth Bader Ginsburg for a clerkship position because of her gender. So now we are going to find out who was appointed to the board of the Tennessee Valley Authority. None other than George Norris. He was a progressive and liberal U.S. politician. He served 5 terms each in the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate from Nebraska. He and President Roosevelt shared a vision of what the Tennessee Valley could be. His strong belief in public power and rural electrification led to his creation of the Norris Bill, which later became the Tennessee Valley Authority Act of 1933. This act was passed as part of FDR's New Deal. Today, the Tennessee Valley Authority is the largest public power company in the United States. The agency also manages the nation's 5th largest river system. It controls flooding, makes rivers easier to travel, and protects water quality. As a federal public power corporation, the TVA serves about 80,000 square miles in the southeastern United States. This area includes most of Tennessee and parts of 6 other states: Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia. So this is the manuscript that Eleanor wrote on January 5th, 1939. She includes many tidbits about her very full day on January 5th. She talks about going to see the exhibition of sculpture by Jo Davidson, about attending the press conference of Catherine Lenroot and Dr. Martha Elliott of the Children's Bureau, and the results of the maternity and infancy program under the Social Security Act, as well as Australian feminist Linda Littlejohn, who was presenting facts on work done in Australia and New Zealand. She attended a luncheon given at the Women's National Democratic Club by Lulu Swanson, the wife of Secretary of Navy. She shares that New York Governor Herbert and Edith Lehman both have colds and are unable to join them for dinner that night, but she is hoping that Judge Irving and Sissy Lehman are able to attend. She mentions the appointments of Frankfurter as the new Supreme Court Justice and George Norris to the Board of Tennessee Valley Authority. She includes the reader good-naturedly about sympathizing about how colds can make work difficult, and that regardless of differing opinions, the most important thing is to do good work. So that is our talk with the curator for tonight. There she is, lovely picture of Eleanor. And thank you so much for joining us. This is also one of my favorite pictures of Eleanor with her suitcase, getting ready to leave, flying off to yet another thing. So now if we have time for questions.
Michelle, we have a few questions. There were some really amazing sleuths in the chat too. I had a question about, and I'm sorry if my mic is not working very well. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a question about Sissy Strauss Lehman, who apparently could have been, and this person is correct in their question, related to Macy's, the department store Strauss family.
Absolutely, she sure is. Absolutely.
So she's the daughter.
Daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Good job. Good job. Yes, she is.
So that's pretty amazing. The other thing I wanted to ask, someone was asking about the sculptor and about the Eisenhower sculpture. So that would have been made. So the question was that created when Eisenhower was in the military?
Yes, it was.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, he did do that when he was in the military. I did read that. Yes.
Very cool. My other question is if you could just talk about a little bit about My Day. And apologies to people out there. I'm using a new microphone tonight and trying to see if it works. So if you're getting the kickback that I am, I'm gonna work on it next time. So when I've been thinking about My Day and reading it, it's a real mix of different things, like different ideas, different people that she encounters. And of course, she encounters the most interesting people. But can you talk about like different themes of My Day? What's kind of generally like what was her approach to writing a My Day column, or just talk a little bit about My Day in general for us?
Oh gosh, there are so many amazing scholars. I'm thinking of Lita Black, who's done all this amazing work with Eleanor Roosevelt. And I'm such a fan of Lita Black's. She just, it's like what I was saying, it's like Facebook. It's like she's just lets you into her life. It's so amazing that I've read them where she's like telling you, oh, and tonight we went to go see to the theater with my sons. And, it's all very positive. What I sense in what her overall theme, it's in the humanness. We're all human. We all suffer colds. We all enjoy people. We all like to go out. We all like to do things. And so she's giving you this amazing insight into what's happening for her, which is she leads this very privileged life. And yet she is allowing everyone else in on it. She's saying, I'm just like you. It's so remarkable. I think it's what makes Eleanor Roosevelt such a popular first lady this day. She's so relatable. She'll actually say, I was wrong.
Yeah, that's
too.
I love that aspect of her. So the other question I had was, some of those women were new to me hearing about them that were in interesting roles like the Children's Bureau. We always hear about Frances Perkins and her influence. Like what other, I'm sure like some of these women, there are like biographical info. What other women out there should we be looking for that are in Eleanor's inner circle?
Well,
you can recommend.
I know that, of course, you and I both are big fans of Pauli Murray. wonderful book about the First Lady and the Firebrand. Holly Murray is amazing. Oh my gosh, she was friends with Amelia Earhart. She was friends with, she worked with so many people. Oh my goodness, I'm going to blank.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I can see her name. I can see her face. I can't think what her name is.
It's okay. We'll put it in
I'm
the
so sorry. Yeah, she worked with so many, this depth of people that she worked with all over the world too,
Mhm.
just here.
There's one really great question here that we'll wrap it up with. Was Eleanor aware when she was writing My Day that it would become essentially a historical public record?
Question. She maybe was. She might have been. I mean, it's certainly used now, that's for sure. I think that it was just her way of reaching people. She really saw it as a way of reaching people. Yeah, I don't know whether she really did or not. I mean, that would be, I haven't studied that part of whether she had a sense of herself in history. I'm sure she did on some level.
I love the comparison you made to social media, though. The idea that the My Day column is like your post. It makes a lot of sense, and it makes it so like fresh and forward in a new way.
So she's like so ahead of her time, you know. I mean, oh my gosh. She's a
Well,
tough act to follow for so many first ladies.
I just want to read this comment, and then I want to ask you about the next curator series talk. And just wrapping it up, thinking about Eleanor, because Eleanor is the first lady that we always return to. Someone in the chat is saying, I suspect it was Eleanor who established my early and continuing interest in US politics, government, history, and social justice. So if Eleanor brought you to the study of first ladies or passion to explore women's history, we welcome you because we are part of that club too. And we love sharing info about all first ladies. So hope you can join us for an upcoming program. We have talks about Jacqueline Kennedy. We have talks coming up about Lou Hoover, all sorts of amazing women. So Michelle, can you tell us what the next Curator Series talk is going to be about?
In October, I always, Halloween's my favorite. So I always like to do something kind of, I don't know, like last year I did the funeral of Caroline Harrison in the White House. This year we're going to look at, there's several 19th century, I call them weeping women, where it's the president passes away and there's a scene that it's like this thing that they do. It's like the media has this, they draw this picture of the president and all these people, important men surrounding him, and the woman is crying and you don't see her face. So we're going to look at a lot of different ones of those, and we'll talk about why that might be. We'll discuss things like that. So it should be lots of fun.
That sounds amazing. I'm super excited. Again, we have some cool plans for National First Ladies Library. Lots coming up for the fall, lots coming up for holidays like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So we hope you can join us. And Michelle, as always, thank you for sharing objects from the collection and all of your knowledge of First Ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.